Hi, this is James Gardner of the CineTechGeek, and I'm here with Ted Schilowitz. And Ted's very well known as a futurist, and every year at CinemaCon he's with Barco, paving the new directions of where Barco's going with its new technologies and its new, emerging experience technologies. And this year's been a big year for that because Escape's had some really good announcements. And we're going to talk to Ted this year because Escape is a new medium. And a new medium needs some futuristic foresight because you need to know how to use that medium to its maximum benefit. And so Ted's been working with a lot of producers and is excited to announce what I'm very excited about, the BadRobot and J.J. Abrams.
Yep.
So I want to start with that because that's what I'm excited about actually. And just before that, I have seen you've done some nice new little test videos, the poker one and the Red Bull one. The Red Bull one's amazing if you can get to see that's because it's the panoramic and the being in the moment sort of aspect of that. I was very impressed, and that's what made me so impressed about, Star Trek like this. Okay, I'll see that. I'll pay even extra to see that. So tell us, bring us through. I wanted to today talk to you about how you're bringing these ideas to the producers, and how what the producers who are interested in doing this.
Right.
How will they come and talk to you, and what's the process to expand that sort of part of their production process and how they think about making this new experience type content?
Sure. Well, the first thing I want to say, even before we get into that, is what I like about your approach, James, with all this stuff, is that you take a much more thoughtful approach than most of the press, right? Most of the press is all about finding their story, getting their angle, and running with it, which is fine, totally acceptable. It's how people want to digest a lot of the information that's flowing at them very quickly. But there are a few outliers that are more focused on something a little deeper, a little more thoughtful, a little more that you would actually sit down in an environment like this, not a quick little stand-up, 2 minutes.
No.
And you've done that over the past few years, and we've built quite a friendship around which is great. So I think it's terrific that you wanted to see some material this morning. You didn't just want to dive into it and talk about stuff. You wanted to get a sense of it. You've already commented on the Red Bull piece, which we think is an interesting piece and an interesting collaboration. Because a lot of this actually is many years in the works. So the Red Bull folks did an early test piece with us a few years back in the very early days of Barco Escape with this amazing kite skiing footage.
Yes.
And we sort of learned what was super positive about it, all the technical flaws, and then they went back to the well because they were so excited about starting to explore immersive cinema at scale. Like the idea that this wouldn't just show up in one or two places around the world in a museum or a theme park. This would show up in many cinemas around the world.
Well, and just on that, I found it, and I agree with you completely, and what I found very interesting about watching the Red Bull stuff compared to the stuff we saw a year or so ago is that there was a definite evolution in how the medium was used to its maximum benefit.
Yes.
And I could see that because I'll be honest with you, the first time I saw it, I said, this is interesting, it's da-da-da-da. But I came back this year and I looked at it and said, actually, I feel very different about it this year. The content's getting a lot more traction with me this year. I said, they're really sort of figuring out how to make this environment work better.
Yeah.
And so I was sitting here thinking about this is more interesting this year. And then I was thinking, I'm a Star Trek. I love Star Treks. So I thought, and then I joined that interest with one of my favorite
franchises. Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, I'm very interested now.
Right, and a lot of that, what you're pointing to, is craftsmanship.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
It takes time as you're developing a new format, and you and I know, based on this very nuanced conversation, that while what we're approaching and the way we're approaching it with digital tools and our take on it is completely new, we're standing on the shoulders of giants here. There are others that have been trying to figure out how do we break out of this frame, how do we break out of this rectangle that we've been in for many generations of cinema. Yeah. And it's been so difficult that people have had aspirations to do it, but they've always sort of failed or fallen short. And now we're on the cusp of being able to use extraordinary modern technology that Barco is, of course, a leader in. They build most of the projectors for movie theaters around the world as it stands. Yeah. So we're really good at this stuff, right? And it's such an interesting role for me to play, both as a role at Barco, as the sort of creative guy that's sort of responsible for all the creative aspects of delivering that format, but working with this amazing technical team that understands that creative and technical are actually one and the same, right? Which is the movie business in general. So now when you go into that theater, you notice that it was completely silent in that theater, even though there are multiple projectors in the theater here at CinemaCon, because we have them in special hush boxes.
That's right.
You notice that...
If you want to quickly, because the CineTechGeek sort of stuff, just on that, Barco has developed specific technology, or hush boxes as they call them, so you can place the actual premium D-side type projectors in the auditorium in a silent method.
Correct.
And that's an important aspect, because...
And hard work to do this.
It's a difficult job,
yes,
right? And so that's a key element to making this new canvas work perfectly in the way it needs to work in that environment. So this is a long-term, this is a long-term play, right?
And we're still, what I consider this is a constant evolution of the technology and a constant improvement of the technology.
That's right.
That as more exhibitors get bought in, and we'll talk about Star Trek as sort of that, now this massive motivating force, right? There were the early adopters that said, this is great, like audiences do want this, and of course the relationship with Fox through my role at Fox and all the great work that we did there on the first and second Maze Runners really set the stage, right? 2 big Hollywood movies early on in the provability stage. But even as we worked on them, we knew we could do so much better, right? So now when we start to approach Star Trek, and working with Justin Lin, the director, and J.J. Abrams as the producer, and he was, I imagine you were at the Paramount presentation on the first night.
I saw J.J. Abrams come up and talk, and he showed a lot of enthusiastic about doing this.
Very much so, and very specifically mentioned the partnership with Barco Escape.
That's exactly right.
In front of every exhibitor on the planet.
That's right.
Right.
Yes.
So now you have a real, biggest filmmaker arguably in the world right now,
that's true, yes,
right?
Yeah.
Coming and saying he's really interested in the new.
Yes.
He's really interested in working with groups that are all about exploring and how odd or interesting that is, because that's essentially the mission of Star Trek, right?
True,
is to boldly go where no man has gone before. So here we are, boldly going where no cinema has gone before, and in terms of really getting you into that experience. And you've heard me say for years now that in my mind, because I'm a child of the theme parks. I grew up in Orlando, and I've lived that whole world. It's a big part of, as I talk about my role as a futurist at 20th Century Fox, why do I feel so comfortable doing that? Why am I so, why do I feel like I can navigate those waters better than most, and feel more comfortable with change than not with change? And it's simply because I've been in that exploratory mode and understand the world of theme park entertainment so innately. And this is a kissing cousin to theme park entertainment, but taking it to scale. Yeah. It's also a kissing cousin to virtual reality, which of course we're deeply involved in.
That's right.
And
I think a lot of people underestimate that in terms of, I am actually quite surprised that the traction VR is getting this year, because I personally think that VR is so new and so unknown that the traction outweighs its current usefulness, but that's only my opinion, right? As someone who's a child of cinema, I've always loved cinema. I find it difficult to believe that, because I know how cinema is made, and I've been part of the production processes and in post-production, etc., and the amount of effort that the producers go to direct the attention and the story as someone is watching it. And you need to keep watching the screen to make sure you don't miss anything. I find it very difficult, or it's a new story, it's a completely new medium where people are going to be able to look around, because then it's like when someone's reading your book when you're a child, you don't go out and get a drink or something like that, because you'll miss it and the story won't make any sense. And VR doesn't make sense to me like that, but we'll probably talk about that in the next video.
Yeah, that's a whole area of discussion, because just touching on it briefly, and then we can leave it for another date. While I agree with a lot of what you're thinking at its core, what I'm seeing being so involved in it, so in the swirl, and actually now building what would be now considered the first sort of blockbuster piece of content with the Martian VR piece that we did for 20th Century Fox, that was this giant hit at CES when we launched it to the press, and then went to Sundance, and it was a monster hit there. And then now is getting ready to come out in the commercial platforms. We that are working in it actually know that the curve into this will actually be slower than everyone anticipates. When you read about it in the press, you think it's going to be this massive overnight, like everybody's going to have one of these in home.
That's what, as a technical person, I understand that and know that. Yeah. And we'll talk about it.
We can talk about it. But it is
an interesting topic. But finally, let's just get back to
Star Trek, which we wanted to talk about.
Star Trek?
Right? Yes.
But it's not just Star Trek. The interesting aspect is you've got some other guys making some full films in Escape.
We do.
I think that'll be an interesting experience to go through because 10 minutes in a full film, because like you said, in Escape, like I'm very much believe with you. You have to train the audience as well, right? So when a lot of people come to Escape for the first time, I was a little bit uncomfortable because I'm not used to looking around.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out what should I do.
That's right. And so it takes a while before you become comfortable with it's a different way of watching a film.
Well, and a lot of it has to do with the directors and the producers. Again, it goes back to craftsmanship.
Yeah.
When things are crafted in a giant landscape, as you saw with the Red Bull piece and the poker piece, there's a storytelling narrative that sets the stage for where you likely should look. It doesn't mean that you have to look
That's
there,
exactly right.
but that you are being led down the path.
That's
and
right.
all cinema, all storytelling, whether it's in a novel, in a book, or in a traditional cinema, in VR, in gaming, while you believe you have free will, you don't really have total free will. Now, what these new formats are giving us, including Escape, is the believability that this is sort of really happening around you. So that by itself instills more conceptual that I have free will within this story. I'm able to actually make choices. But the really good craftsmen know that you want to be taken on the journey. And the more real that journey can be, the more exciting, which is where J.J. Abrams and his team at BadRobot get really excited about it, because they're the ultimate craftsmen, right? They're going to craft the story and bring you into it exactly the way they want. But they also know that within this new medium, there's a new challenge and a new opportunity to actually play it out in a way that I want to be a little different than my neighbor, and I want it to be a social experience, and I might want to go and regather that information again. I might want to go see it again and see it in different ways and learn about it in different ways, which just, of course, increases the success of the potential box office and everything around it.
That's right. So we've got BadRobot, we've got, just name the other guys who are doing the full...
Right. So there's a whole array of things that are happening now, right?
Let's just go over them now.
Yeah, so Star Trek is a big tentpole for this summer.
That's right.
And then Scott Waugh, who's the director of Need for Speed and Act of Valor, two very successful movies, very forward-thinking director. He's working on a movie called Six Below. They're shooting right now. And they've been shooting for a few weeks. And he is working on the entire motion picture in the Escape format. So he's shooting all widescreen. He's working the framing accordingly, and it's going to be remarkable.
And just on that topic, because a lot of, I hope, producers try and watch my videos too, because in my opinion, if you love your film and you want to make it properly, you need to understand it from the camera to the screen. Right?
Correct.
And so you need to understand the technology to a reasonable degree from the camera to the screen. So in terms of people who watch, like a good question that was asked, what cameras are needed and how accessible is making Escape content today?
So I think it's a great point that you bring the concept of the filmmaking has always been this blending of ones that really understand the technical arts and technical creativity of the tool sets, and then ability to bring that story to life using those tools. So
right.
like Birdman last year, Gravity the year before, are great examples of the team of Alejandro and Chivo that understood their tool set and understood their canvas, right?
And
so
it's a good thing about understanding it. You know how far you can bring it to bring it to the sweet spot of the experience, and that's why it is so important if you are a budding filmmaker. And that's one of the reasons I make the CineTechGeek videos, because it's actually for you guys who make content as well. Because if you understand what's happening in the theatre, what's happening on the screen, and why it may not look the way you want it to look, you are in a better position to make it look the way you want it to look next time around.
So it's why I put a lot of my energy in working with film festivals. The last 2 years we did the CineQuest Film Festival, which is one of the most forward-thinking film festivals in the world, and we've had the Barco Escape system there. Packed houses for a couple weeks. The film festival runs a couple weeks. We do 5 or 6 showings over 2 weeks. We built 8 new short pieces, of which you've seen a couple, for that film festival, because that's the perfect learning and breeding ground. And you start working with filmmakers that understand. We should pop back in the theater, and I should show you this horror movie little piece. We have the trailer for it, and the first is a featurette, 30-minute featurette called The Secret of 40. Yep. And it's remarkable. It's terrifying because
I'm not very
you think that because you have a way to look all around you, you can get out of that experience.
Well,
you can't because
I can
it's
see,
literally everywhere.
Well,
you can't get away from it.
Well, I can see horror films being a good genre because horror films are about the unexpected and about things happening and scaring you.
Yes.
And when there's parts of the screen which you're not actually paying full attention to,
And they can grab you.
that's exactly right. Something can happen, and that's what you get when something comes out of nowhere that you're not prepared for. That's when you get a fright.
You got it.
And so you can literally I can see Escape scaring the bejesus out
Yeah,
of
we
people.
had one of our lead trade show guys, as I said, I can't remember, I want you to watch this, we just loaded it in today. He's like, I don't like horror movies.
I don't either.
Like, you'll be fine. Trust me, he was not fine. Like, he watches and he's like, you got to get me out of here. Like, I can't take this anymore. Okay, all right, stop. Okay, we'll let him go.
But again, back to what we were talking about. So there's a lot of 6K, 8K cameras.
Yes.
And those cameras, if you're shooting in those cameras, you're escape ready.
That's right. That's what's one of the great things about how technology has been aligned with us. And of course, that's part of my background is actually helping bring those cameras to life.
That's right.
So I knew that. So I did have sort of a sense of where that technology was going and had a belief structure that we don't have to worry about shooting with multiple camera rigs for this, although sometimes that's exactly what you would want to do with small head-mounted cameras and capturing action stuff, as you saw in the Red Bull piece. But most of that Red Bull piece is literally captured with one high-resolution camera, and you can see how well it works and how well it brings you into the immersion of it.
It's not that, like, one thing that watching the Red Bull thing did bring back to me, what it reminded me of, is that it's like the Hateful Eight was very much about the massive
big sweeping scale, right?
And to a degree, Escape is actually the next step up above what he was trying to do in terms of massive sweeping scale with high resolutions and immersing you in the actual vistas of what you're looking into. And I found that very interesting because that's sort of the thing that the Red Bull thing sort of brought to me.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with the amount of traction that Tarantino got for the Hateful Eight and that aspect of his filmmaking technology.
We know audiences want this. I mean, it is the differentiator between their television experience, which of course is relatively wide now and pretty big now, and really let's go to the cinema. Let's go experience something with an audience that's all around you as best as we can achieve with technology. So he used all the technology from the golden era of cinema to achieve the wideness that he could with 70 millimeter ultra Panavision. Terrific. And we're, as you said, we're taking it way beyond that.
That's right.
We're using modern technology, not previous world technology, film technology,
That's exactly right.
film projection technology, which
that's why I
for
find
me,
it very
I'm all
interesting.
about, for a guy who lives in the future, I'm all about what are the things you learn from the past that make the future so possible. And those are the things. Those are the. I use this. We stand on the shoulders of giants, right? Those tool sets that allowed that vision to be created, even though it never was able to go to mass scale, it showed the possibilities. And then at some point, you hope that the technology allows everybody to have those possibilities. That's where it sort of sits.
Anyway, I think that's great.
We didn't get to Star Trek much. Are you okay with just teasing Star Trek?
I'm okay with teasing because I think. Surprise them.
Yeah.
You'll be surprised.
We're working really hard on it, is what I can tell you.
They're going to use the Escape to make the Star Trek movie a new experience you've never done before, and I'm very keen to see what they do because I know there's a lot of potential creativity in the Escape system and how you use it.
Yeah.
They will I bet they're spending months doing things different ways, sitting there and saying what does and does not work. And I will be excited to see what they come up with.
You're exactly right. And, it's basically like unlocking a treasure trove of creativity, and we keep unlocking it every day. We keep looking at it, experimenting.
Because this is a new medium, and it takes time to learn new mediums. So I'm saying here is that give them the time, give them as much hope as possible, and I'm sure we'll have an excellent surprise on the other end. But we'll come up with another video based on NAB and probably focus on VR. But that's that for now for CinemaCon 2016. And thank you very much, Ted.
My pleasure. Always good to talk to you.
And we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. This is James Gardner, CineTechGeek.